Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you want to hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter, we on that haunted ground. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my cool friend Jessica.
Hey Spooksters.
And today we are starting a new docu recap. We hinted we were going to talk about some influencers this month. So we are starting with Belle Gibson. Over the next 2 weeks, we are recapping the documentary on Netflix called The Search for Instagram's Worst Con Artist. And her name might be familiar, whether you're familiar with her story or because you might have heard about the buzz about Apple Cider Vinegar, a series that came out earlier this year. It's about her. Yeah, it's insane. I'm going to say up front before we get into the business stuff, for a trigger warning, if you were sensitive about people who have cancer, went through cancer, lie about having cancer, things like that, this series will not be for you. And like we always say with these kind of heavier ones, if you need to go skip for a couple weeks or you need to go check out some other episodes, please do that. We always want you guys in the best headspace because we will get into it with even other cancer survivors who were affected by her as well with all of this. Ugh. And I just have to say, like, as I learned about her business ventures and stuff, I remember being like, oh my God, I remember this. I do remember that. So it's just like, It's crazy to me, like not knowing who she was. Right. Okay.
Right.
But before we get into that, we will go ahead and do our little business and then we'll just get into this. So if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you for checking out the show. Returning Spooksters, welcome back. If you are not hanging out with us on social media, what are you doing at this point? Especially if you've been listening to us for a while, please go follow us. Please. We are on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, all of the places. Our handle for that is at Three Spooked Girls. We also have our thriving, amazing Facebook group. If you've listened, y'all know Jessica and I only use Facebook for the groups, especially ours. That's Three Spooked Girls Official. They get all the sneak peeks. Anytime you hear announcements on here, they're always dropped in there first, just because that was like our OG home base. So we still treat it as such. So definitely come hang out with us. If you are a reader, we do have a book club. It is Spookster Literary Society. We're in the book clubs app. That is also linked in our link tree. That's in the show notes. That takes you to everywhere you want to go for us. We do monthly Discord meetings. Again, another place to hang out with us. And for June, we are reading, I was like, what month is this? First of all, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck?
It's like, where's the year gone?
Literally, I cannot believe we're in June of 2025. But anyway, we're reading Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. That was a really popular book. She's a very popular author. So we're kind of doing a mainstream read. So if you want to check that out and join us, feel free. We'd love to have you. And if you would like to support the show, because yes, we are an indie podcast, we would love to have you over on Patreon. We are on patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For as little as $1, you get one bonus episode a month. Those are a lot of fun. We do all kinds of different stuff. The one for May was an episode on if certain state laws were real or not. And it was a lot of fun. And we're probably going to have a continued segment of that on Patreon. Because we only went through, we obviously did not go through all 50 states, but we did go through a good chunk of them. And this first chunk, I've lived in like almost all of the states she went through.
I know. It was like, wow, way to like live in only the first part of the alphabet of the United States.
Literally, I was like dying when I was editing it because I'd be like, oh, this one too. Or she'd be like, oh, this one too. And then there was like one we did. And then at the end, we were both like, oh, yeah, you did live there too. Like crazy. I am well traveled for the United States. So definitely check that out. And also starting at our $5 tier, if you would like ad-free episodes early, you can join that tier. And we are also still in our Gypsy recap phase. So we are recapping season 2 of Gypsy Rose's Life After Lockup. That's on Lifetime. We also did season 1 when that came out. So 5 and up patrons currently, until we are done with that series, which we're like right in the middle of right now, are getting us twice a week. So if you want more 3 Spooked Girls and you want another huge ass backlog, go over there because you think there's a lot of episodes here. There's also a lot of episodes there. Our show's been around for a long time. So we had a lot of time to spare during like COVID shutdown time. So we were pumping out. I wish we could do that.
At one point in time, we were doing like 2 episodes a week on the main feed and then a 3rd episode on Patreon every week. It was a lot
more.
During the pandemic,
Sometimes 4, depending on. Yeah, it was definitely a lot. It was a lot of fun. There's a couple different series you guys can check out, or if you've listened to older episodes, you're probably already familiar. So yeah, lots of fun. We would love to have you there. We also do have a YouTube channel for the summertime while we're finishing up the Gypsy series. Speaking of pushing out a lot of content, we are kind of just doing audio, but we would love to have you subscribe over there. Help us get those watch hours up. Our goal is hopefully we would love to be a YouTube partner one day. So that's just another free way to support us. And lastly, if you are not listening to our second show, we do have Social Seance Society, which is a whole second separate podcast because I'm crazy and love to not sleep, apparently. But we have that, and we've interviewed a lot of really cool guests. Jess and I have also done a lot of cool, like, hot topics. So if you enjoy, like, the true crime headlines type of thing, we've expanded to hot topics like pop culture, society, everything is over there. And then we announced recently we are doing, like, a transition. So we're going to be doing some nostalgic content, just Jess and I over there, just to kind of, like, test that out and see how that feels. And honestly, for our own and fucking entertainment. We have a Twilight deep dive coming. We have some summer slashers dives coming and all kinds of cool stuff. So absolutely check it out. We would love for you guys to go and tune in. And again, that's another way to get more content of us. We release episodes for that every other Wednesday. So absolutely check that out. But that I think is it. So, okay, we're going to get into this. If you have no idea about any of this, about this documentary, about Belle Gibson, here, I copied into my notes the little synopsis for you so you can know what we're getting into. So the synopsis for this is the inside story of Belle Gibson, a 21-year-old social media influencer who conned followers out of millions of dollars by claiming she had cured terminal cancer with an extreme eating healthy diet. This is the true story behind the series of Apple Cider Vinegar that came out earlier this year. And this originally released in November of 2023. I didn't realize this had been out so long, but I think having the apple cider vinegar one come out definitely drove probably people to watch this one more. I know for me, at least, it did, especially after you told me you enjoyed this more than the fictionalized one.
It was like I needed to know, because I'm that bitch who needs to know, like, is the documentary and then the docu-series or the drama series that's related to it, is it similar? And I will say that they're so on par with one another. They're so close that you're like, oh, the apple cider vinegar is probably just what happened behind the scenes.
For sure. So let's get into it. Okay. So I will say, though, for those who have not watched, keep in mind that Belle did not participate in this documentary. It is a bit unique because of all of the other like news specials, interviews. There's like a 2020 style special. She's done a lot of media interviews. So we do get a lot of audio and a lot of clips. That's actually her too. And I feel like that just kind of adds to the layer of understanding like this story and everything with it. I loved that. So speaking of, we do open up with a post of Belle Gibson's that was her 5-year anniversary of being told by a doctor that she had been diagnosed with a malignant stage 4 brain tumor and only had 4 months to live. Cue tons of Instagram comments because Belle got her start on Instagram and, you know, had hundreds of thousands of followers and all of that type of thing. And even on like her, I love how they're like, before she burst into success, she was already at like almost 200,000 Instagram followers. And this is 2013. So I'm like, that's a big fucking deal back. I mean, it's still a big deal now, but like that was a really big deal to have that many followers even back then, because keep in mind, this is the infancy of Instagram. This is like the very early days. Definitely somebody trying to do this shit now would have been figured out way quicker. But because of how the like social climate was of the internet at that time, I can totally see that. Like, it's so believable and like not surprising she got away with what she did for so long.
This was so early on. People didn't understand fake influencers because there was no real thing as influencers back then. There was like
for sure
Insta models, but not like actual like influencers.
Oh yeah, definitely. So then again, we get a little bit of like an interweaving of like these clips and stuff. And it's like her on a pier, just freaking like looking out reflectively and walking. And if you listen to our Gypsy Rose series, it's very Ryan vibes when he's all sad girl summer about his life.
Oh my God, it is Brian Sad Girl Summer.
Oh gosh. But to scoot away from Belle, we are taken to Melbourne, Australia, and we meet a man named Richard. And we'll see him a lot during this. He is a journalist from Australia. And during this time, so like 2014, he was the staff writer for The Australian, which is like one of their mainstream giant newspapers, right? And during this time, unfortunately, his wife was diagnosed with cancer. And as one does, his wife turned to the internet to start researching things that could be alternatives or online communities and just trying to get information. Richard, of course, was also researching as well, partially because like obviously it's his job. So it's just like built in him to do that. And obviously he loves his wife. So, you know, and he came across a discussion thread about Belle and her cancer journey. And he hadn't heard of her previously because one, he's like an older man. So obviously he's not bebopping around on Instagram. So like he had no idea who she was. He had never heard of her. He had never seen her, nothing like that. So he did go onto her profile. He saw her story because Belle's always been very vocal online with this. That is how she built the community she did have. And more so, what stood out to him was that she mentioned that chemo made her too sick. So she decided to opt out of that and take a holistic approach and have this natural living kind of lifestyle change to help with her journey. He says that she was showing, and I agree with him, that not only was she essentially curing herself of cancer, but he describes her as a, quote, model of mental and physical well-being because she, you know, she's this young girl. She's beautiful. She's got like great hair, great skin, perfect eyebrows, the whole thing. And he said he became immediately intrigued because he did know the flip side of having a loved one have cancer. And he said he already knew it was so medically, I don't want to say impossible, but like basically impossible. Just, he said, very, very difficult to treat a malignant brain tumor like this. And that usually this is a death sentence, but here she was 5 years post-diagnosis and thriving. Now, oh my gosh. So we meet another girl who is a cancer survivor herself, like a real one. Her name is Bella Johnston. She says that she came across Belle around the same time as Richard and his wife. And during that time, she was going through her own battle of cancer, and she was 19 at the time of her diagnosis. So she felt very alone in this because she talks about how anytime that, you know, she would go to the hospital, go for treatments, things like that, it was all the other patients were elderly people. And she didn't know anyone who was her age or her age range that was going through the same thing. So, you know, as one does, you turn to social media. She does acknowledge social media is highly addictive. She compares it to hard drugs because of how sucked in she got, not only with the internet, but with Belle's life online. She thought that Belle was this amazing, courageous, inspiring person. But also, to be fair, who wouldn't? Whether you are going through a cancer battle or you're just a healthy person, who wouldn't find that so inspirational and want to support someone? Because really, if this was something that could be done, she would be like a 1 in a million, if not more, chance of this, like, how lucky is she? You know, that's basically what it is, right? And she was very open about everything. She would post updates on her health. She would post about hospital visits and things like that. But the common theme you would always see with this is she would get to go home and she would just continue to express how grateful she was for her family and her community of people online and things like that. And to me, this was such a great example just on its own, how successful Belle was just as an influencer, because Bella says that she didn't know if she wanted to be her or be her best friend. And knowing what we know now that influencers are a much more common thing, that's literally an influencer's whole job. That's what makes them successful. You build this following that wants to give a shit about you, you've done your job at whatever level that is. And as her career goes, an influencer is also a salesman. I don't care what anyone says. You're also a salesman.
1,000%. You're selling yourself. And a lot of times you're selling products to make money. I mean, we do it on the pod because we have ads. There's a bit of like salesmanship to being an influencer.
Mm-hmm. And then we flashed to another footage clip of the real Belle. And she's talking about how her online communities had this commonality of people that felt like they were alone. And she says that she asks herself, what else or what more could she be doing? Because that's going to be a big part of her thing is, how can I continue to give back? I have this level of privilege now. What can I do to give back? That's how she positions herself. Then, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say his name wrong. We meet this guy. His name is Dek Singh. He's an influencer marketing CEO. And I like that we got his input because while you and I and anybody who's a creator or any kind of influencer, you kind of get the vibe of that. But like people who aren't on this side of the internet may not. So I like that they did have him for his input on this. He's talking about things we've already mentioned. So like, you know, with this happening in 2013, this was all kind of unexplored territory. And just looking at Belle's progress, this really showed that she understood what was needed to build this personal brand of hers and all of these communities that she created, that she was completely ahead of the game on making that pivot to find a way to monetize, because basically a lot of people weren't doing it then. And not even just monetize, but take your online platform that literally is like just you and turning it into a physical product that you can bring back to your community to sell to them, to build up more income, to build up what you're growing, basically. And how business first she approached this with, especially back then, that was something that like did not happen. And also he really does compare her growth to becoming a celebrity overnight, which I completely agree with. So she ended up creating this whole app based on this whole like lifestyle that she's selling on what cured her or whatever. And this app was called The Whole Pantry. This was marketed as, because it was, the world's first health, wellness, and lifestyle app. They had whole food recipes, like a whole library. They had all kinds of different guides and resources as far as like your health and your wellness and like changing your lifestyle. And, oh, you need something that'll help with inflammation. Well, make these foods, or you need help with this, then you should be drinking this or eating that. And that was something at the time that was completely brand new. So I looked up when they launched the app, they got over 200,000 initial users that downloaded it and registered and everything like that. So that's fucking huge, especially when like this wasn't quite, we were slowly obviously inching into like, oh my God, there's an app for everything. But this was still so early on that this is like such a huge success for sure. And we meet another cancer patient. Her name is Emily Summers. And she says that she was probably one of those first people that did sign up. She says, of course, this isn't a community you want to be a part of, but once you're in it, you'll discover it's full of generous, kind, and thoughtful people. And so the news of this app spread throughout the community. And Emily says, of course, we all just wanted to support her because she was one of us. We wanted to, she's trying to help us and we want to help her and we want to be there for her. You know, it's this like mutual thing. She's like, so of course we all were just like, hell yeah, let's get this. Let's see. Like, and also, you know, it's working so great for her. Why can't it work for me? Cause like, you know,
exactly.
Yeah. And Bella, who we spoke with earlier, she subscribed as well. And both Bella and Emily talk about like how beautiful the app was, how it was truly the first time they had experienced anything that was this type of app that had everything in one place, because it's not like it's just recipes or it's just these guides. It's like her and whoever she worked with, they really thought about like, what can we do to make this an all-in-one place so that we can get people who might be interested in this topic as a whole, but like you got to like cherry pick, like what can I do to broaden or open up the audience or the consumers type of thing, which again, one, I will give it to her. That does make her a pioneer with this. It does. As much as a piece of shit as she is, this does make her a pioneer with this. And I think whether it was her or whoever was in her close circle that was thinking like this or encouraged thinking like this, if it wasn't for that, we would not be here talking about her right now.
I remember this app when it launched, and I remember like you had to buy it. So I was like, I don't really want to like spend the money on it. But this app was amazing. Like for people who, I mean, just even having dietary issues, like people were like, oh my God, this is so great. Cause I heard, I mean, at the time I lived in the Silicon Valley. So like it was talked about. I had friends who had purchased it, not because they had cancer, but because they were like, this is a holistic view of eating. You know, this is kind of like diet culture at its like biggest, which is like, well, I didn't understand. Like, I was like, okay, the cancer part, but like this app could have just been a really great app sans cancer.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then to switch gears a little bit, Bella talks about how she compared her life to Belle's because she was so sickly and she was dealing with everything that comes with a cancer battle. And she's like, I was seeing Belle look so good, so healthy. She's like, it did influence me. She would talk about how she would get fake tanner and extensions to try to kind of emulate that she was healthier than what she was. And she talks about, she's like, there was times that it would take literally all of the physical energy I had just to apply my fake tanner, but I wasn't about to go get a treatment or go somewhere without it. Just that whole, like, just how influential she truly was on people. And the other big thing was that Belle was saying that the medicines and the treatments what were made her look so sickly and whatnot early on. And that the only reason she looked so healthy, even though technically she wasn't, was because of her diet and her lifestyle changes and everything like that. And so, of course, this was like her quote proof for other people. And people did take that at face value. And this is what Bella did too. So much so, she tried to talk her parents into letting her quit chemo and quit all of the treatments she was on so she could try this alternative medicine and treatment versus everything she was currently doing. And Emily said that she did the same exact thing. And I'm sure there's like hundreds, if not thousands of people who also were going through this as well. Because if not, then like she wouldn't have got to where she was at. The credibility would have been gone. Now, after Richard discovers all of this, he goes to his editor and is like, hey, are you familiar with her? Because honestly, this seems too good to be true and I want to look more into it. And his editor had the same vibe and was like, you know what? Bet. You go think there's a story? Shoo, go do it. Goodbye. Bring it back when you're done, kind of thing. Now we meet probably one of my favorite people in this because I don't know, I like her. So we meet someone who is actually very close friends with Belle. Her name is Chanel. I like Chanel. I do like
too.
Her.
I was like, Chanel comes on and I'm like, yes, queen, yes, spill your tea.
The real boss ass bitch of this, just saying. So Chanel met Belle because they had similar social circles. They had mutual friends, things like that. And so, of course, they started to get to know each other and their friendship formed. She jumps a little ahead and says, we were so close. I was even invited to like the intimate launch of her app type of thing. Okay. And there's more that'll show like how close in their circles they were, but I'm not going to spoil it. So she has this deeper look into actually being in Belle's circle. So she talks about it just a little bit and she's like, yeah, the launch was also a fundraiser for charities, which was a normal thing she did all the time. She emulated exactly what you would think. She was in a white designer dress. She was barefoot. She seemed to be really well. And she's just someone who really knows how to connect with people on a deeper level, no matter who they are, which again is another big thing you have to be good at if you want to be a successful influencer, business person, anything. So we also get a different journalist. Her name is Claire, and she is located in Sydney. And she tells us that she joined Women's Weekly in 2013, and this is how she came across Belle and the whole pantry app. She talks about how, you know, she was seeing the things about like how Belle would donate money to charities or to families who had children with cancer, with brain cancer. She would help pay for schools to be built in Africa and like all of these things. things. And Belle positioned it as, when asked about this, because we do get more clips and things like that, she positioned what she was doing as not bettering her own life. No. Of course, she wants her own health journey and stuff like that. But she says the reason she is doing all of this, the reason she made this app is she wants to change people's lives in a positive way. And that it wasn't about her and it's not about this monetary gain that she has very rapidly started getting. She said that she just really, one of her big focuses was giving back. And that was like a big thing on her image because she wanted to come across as this, like, in my opinion, she probably wanted to be like this martyr philanthropist, like, oh my God, like such an amazing, human, like all of this. And people were buying what she was selling, like metaphoric stance as well, because Belle got a book deal with Penguin, and that's a huge publisher in case you don't know. They decided, which makes total sense, they wanted to do a cookbook with her because a cookbook is going to go hand in hand, not only with her brand, but with her app. Again, very business focused. The advance that they gave her was almost $133,000, which is fucking huge because one, she's not a proven author. And two, like a normal person could easily live off of that amount alone for like a year or two. And
yeah, depending on where you live. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This book deal is what pushes her into being mainstream, which is crazy because even today, there's so many successful influencers who monetarily make great money, make stupid money, like stupid amounts of money, but they never have that crossover into mainstream. And back then, I feel like this was something even more rare. So this was really such a huge deal. And to me, this was the final piece into that golden ticket for success that Belle was looking for and that Belle was chasing. This set her up to be exactly where she wanted to be. And she was everywhere when this book deal happened too. She was on national TV. She had all this revenue coming in. She bought $1 million home on the beach. Anytime she had to travel for work, she would take first class trips. And speaking of work, she ended up landing, and this is how I remember the app because I was a consumer of this product. She got a massive life-changing deal with Apple. It started with that she won an award from them in 2013 for the app to be the best health and wellness app. So this started to add to her credibility and establish things in her life. And there's a bigger deal that I will talk about in a minute that even enmeshed her even more with Apple. So July 2014, her son's birthday was during this month, and it was at the home and it was super close knit. So of course Chanel was there, and she's just talking about how it was just like a cute kids party. Like the kids were outside, the adults were inside mingling, and it was just, everything was all good. But towards the end of the party ending, out of nowhere, Belle falls to the ground and starts convulsing like she's having a seizure.
Talk about needing attention so much.
Oh my God. Like, oh my God, you're leaving my house. I have to fall over now because
also,
spoilers, she faked this, but it's
also,
whatever.
It's like her son's birthday and she's like, oh, the attention's not on me.
Yes. And Chanel calls that out. She's like, it was really weird because her son seemed very aware of like what was happening and things like that. And, certain things kids should not. And the even weirder thing was the second that Chanel says, oh my God, we need to call an ambulance, as one does during a medical emergency, she said right after that, Belle just snaps out of it, sits up and says, no, don't call them. I don't want to involve Western medicine. And I'm sorry, you cannot control a seizure like that and then be in like such a headspace to automatically respond back to that like that. Like, what? So I remember before
only if you're faking it.
Well, yeah, only if you're faking it. So right there, that was like my first thought. Before I continued on, I was like, this would have been a huge ass red flag to me. And I'm like, oh my God, is Chanel going to like have picked this up? Or is she going to be like, I was a dumbass, I didn't. We'll see. But she says she had never experienced seeing anyone have a seizure before, but she said that her initial reaction was confused. And she's like, I don't understand how she recovered so quickly. That seems a little suspicious. And she says that when she left the party, she felt sick to her stomach about the whole thing. And guess what? She saw the red flag of it all. She saw it. She fucking started picking it up. Thank
hero.
God. Because I was like, oh God. And after this, Belle shared an Instagram post with her following. She says, quote, with frustration and ache in my heart, my beautiful game-changing community, It hurts me to find space tonight to let you all know with love and strength that I have been diagnosed for a third and fourth cancer. One is secondary and the other is primary. I have cancer in my blood, spleen, brain, uterus, and liver. I'm hurting. Please don't carry my pain. I've got this. Belle. Of course, everyone's just devastated seeing this news and just pouring in with support, going back to what Emily said about, how supportive and loving this community can be. So of course, this is how everyone reacted, as they would. And it comes back to people loved Belle and people were so invested in her. I don't know if this was like something to cover up to show like that the seizure was quote real, or if this was like, oh, let me test it to see if things are about to get quote really bad. Are these people that are watching me, are they gonna be there for me still in the same way? She got the outcome that she wanted.
I kind of felt like because of how it happened in sequence, it was like she needed to explain why she had a seizure. I feel like she was planning on posting what she posted and she needed like a catalyst to be like, what caused her to be concerned? Because remember, she's supposed to be like the picture of fucking health. Like if you're supposed to be so healthy, why would you go to your doctor? She went to like an alternative doctor is what she kept telling people. The seizure is the catalyst to do that.
Right. And Chanel says that she was honestly really confused about all of this, unlike most people, and felt really conflicted about how she was feeling about everything with Belle. So, of course, she felt bad for her friend and had concern, but she also had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. And I am just going to say it, no matter the situation, listen to your gut. Listen to your intuition. It's usually there to tell you when you don't want to hear it. So Chanel says she found out about this news through the Instagram post, and considering how close of friends they were, this was just really shocking. And Chanel says that she started to go over everything in her head because she's like, none of this is making sense. And she also talks about how Belle has made this whole holistic living thing her whole identity, but in real life, Belle would go do things that would contradict with this, such as going tanning, in the tanning beds, going out to nightclubs, and not just going out and having a good time, but going out and drinking immense amounts of alcohol. She says that it wasn't anything new for her to like order shots, which she normally did. She would have multiple drinks, things like that. But to her online community and in her recipes and in everything, she likes to emphasize that she does not do any of that. She does not consume alcohol. And there's even one recipe that they mention later on, because like they like have some of them like look through the cookbook or whatever, of course. And there's literally a line in there that says, if you don't consume alcohol like me, blah, 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 like this will be good for you.
Like a liver detox or kidney detox or something like that. And it was like, if you don't drink alcohol, like me, if you don't drink alcohol, this will like be a detox. And I'm like, but you do. It's definitely gives the do as I say, not as I do bullshit.
And then we meet someone else who is another favorite of mine. We meet a neurosurgeon. Her name is Kate Drummond. And I thought this was so funny. When she first sits down, she's like, are you guys familiar with Game of Thrones? And they're like, yeah, why? And she says, well, that's how those who know me, they describe me as the mother of dragons. And she gives like this little giggle. And I'm like, oh, this bitch knows she's a boss ass bitch. I love this for her. It was just so funny to me. I was like, yes, love it.
If you watch Grey's Anatomy, she's like the Amelia Shepherd of the real world.
There we go. And like off topic, but like I liked this because I love seeing women stand in their power and owning it and being like, yeah, I am a boss ass bitch. To add to her credibility, she is the director of neurosurgery at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. And wouldn't you know what her specialty is? It's, she's a neurosurgeon, but it's about management of brain tumors. I was just like, yeah.
She's the person, like, when you get cancer, you want her to be your doctor because she understands it all and she's going to be the one with the best success rate.
Definitely.
I don't know why you wouldn't want her.
Definitely. And she kind of gives us I'm not going to go through it in full detail, but like she gives us a full rundown. There's a variety of brain tumors people can have. Here's how they range from like the severity and how dangerous they are. And all of that comes into play with the location, the size, and if it spreads and all of that. And she talks about the type of tumor that Belle claimed to have and says that the chemo and surgery that she would have been told for her treatment plan would have probably prolonged her life, but it would have been fatal. She would be dead. And like, no spoilers, she's still alive today, especially when it began to spread how she said. And we'll talk about more about the spreading later. So Chanel comes back on our screen and she talks about how she reached out to one of her and Belle's mutual friends one night and confided in them that she didn't feel like Belle was telling the truth. And oddly enough, the friend agreed with her. And the two of them came up with a plan to go and confront Belle in person, and they decided to show up to her house unannounced. They didn't want to give her any kind of idea that they were coming, so she couldn't come up with any bullshit. And so when they got there, Chanel says she notices that she wasn't as warm and welcoming as she normally was, that she looked confused, which I was like, well, yeah, that's a fair thing, because like if you have someone show up to your house unannounced, like you're gonna be like, hey, what are you doing here?
I also had that same thought, was like, because the way they describe it and the way that it's like shown in the docuseries is that like it's like a rainy night and like they're showing up at night. They're showing up. So it's probably like, why the fuck are you at my house? And I was like, okay, maybe like that's not the story I should take away from this. I mean, obviously they came to like burst her bubble, but I also like, I'm just going to forewarn you, if you show up at my house at like 9:00 at night, unprovoked, I'm not going to be nice to. I'm going to be like, why the fuck are you here? This is not me rolling out the red carpet. Come in, have a glass of sangria. Let's have a girl time. This is like, you're inconveniencing my life. And you're being accusatory. So I don't blame Belle for not rolling out the red carpet for them. I still think Belle is trash. I want that to be known. Like, I just thought that was a weird thing to be like, and she was not nice to us when we showed up to like bombard her in the middle of the evening. I'd be like, yeah, I would too. Like, you get no sympathy from me on that, Chanel. Zero. But I also am on Team Chanel, just so that everyone knows.
Right. And like, honestly, I feel like this was just her trying to fully describe the whole situation accurately. So I get like, it definitely should be mentioned. Like, I think it would have been a little bit weirder if she was like her normal happy self and just acting so unbothered. That would have been weirder. But love this for Chanel. She said, I don't waste any time. I asked her if she's sick and she said, Belle responded, of course I am. Chanel describes that Belle seems very bewildered about this whole situation, which again, it does fall back to you have your friends show up and then they start asking these questions. And in your brain, these are like your close circle support. So like, what the fuck do you mean? Even if she actually had these things going on, I feel like, again, valid response, even though we don't like Belle. But Chanel did not let this deter her. She did not back down. She started asking Belle to show them any paper proof or evidence of her medical treatment or any of these findings. And Belle's response was that she didn't have it and she didn't like to hold on to any of that kind of paperwork because of its negative energy. And so, of course, they're in the middle of this confrontation. So everything starts to build and things like that. So then Chanel's like, fine, answer this for me. What hospital did you go to for this new diagnosis? What the hell? And then that's when Belle's like, actually, I didn't go to the hospital. I had a doctor come straight to my house. And then I paused it because I was curious at this part. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's not a normal people thing. So I looked up her net worth during this time. And according to the tab, which was just like, like a publication website, at that time, her net worth was $1 million that she allegedly donated about a third of that to charities. So even if that was true, or if it's not, either way, you got to take into consideration that the net worth doesn't equate what's in your bank account right that minute. And I'm like, come on, you did not have no doctors show up and do a house call. And obviously she wasn't fooling anybody else either.
Concierge medicine is extremely expensive.
For sure.
Think about how much you normally pay and then you pretty much triple it, because at least in the US, it's not an active practice unless you live in like such a rural area that's the only way a doctor can see you. And because of like what I do for work, I know that concierge doctors have a hard time getting reimbursed through like health plans. And that's why a lot of them take cash, because you just pay for their service.
For sure. And this next part oh my God. Okay. So Chanel, I love this for her. She presses on and she's like, okay, fine. She's not going to argue with her. She's like, okay, fine. What's the doctor's name? Belle says that her doctor's name is Dr. Phil. And I am so fucking dead. I am like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Your doctor's Dr. Phil? Okay.
First time I heard that, I was like,
screamed. I was like,
what? Did you just think of the first, it's like playing a word association game. They're like, doctor, and you're like, Phil. Like, that's pretty much the vibe it gave me.
For real. For real. I'm like, okay, sure. And then she was like, oh, also, like, good luck finding him because you're not going to. Because after this appointment, he decided just to like ghost everybody and he fell off the face of the earth and he's went underground. So I don't know where he is. I can't get a hold of him. They can't get a hold of him. So you just got to take my word for it.
Because the peoples are after Dr. Phil.
Well, yeah.
He has a very busy recording schedule in LA.
Oh, I took it like for real, not as a joke. I love that though. No, I was like, no, for real, because like obviously if this was a real doctor, Chanel and the friend would have been like, cool, let's fucking get Dr. Phil's contact info and fucking call him up. Like, of course. So she had to make some excuse. And then Belle did the Belle thing and tried to turn it around on them and being like, why are you interrogating me in my home? And then she was like, I'm starting to feel really sick. You guys need to go. So they go. And Chanel says just the more that Belle spoke, the more she was confirming all of her suspicions. And also, fun fact, this was the night before her book launch party. So she was also probably really not expecting anybody to show up at her house. And Chanel says that she knew that it was all just a business strategy to take advantage of vulnerable people. And she said this made her blood boil. And this is why she was coming so hard and was not going to let this go. Which I'm like, go you. Yes, you do it, girl.
I love that Chanel was like, I am so angry for other people because this literally, like, she could have just walked away. She could have just, and I'm sure there are other people who have figured it out and just walked away from Belle. But Chanel was like, no, I will not let you hurt people. I'm going to take you down. And I was like, girl, I love a girl on a mission. Get it.
The true hero of this whole thing, for sure. Like, definitely. So now, just for timeline wise, we're in October of 2014, just for context. And we meet another former friend, and this one is Rebecca Jones. And Rebecca talks about how everyone was truly so proud of her for this rise in success and what this would mean for this community and what doors and conversations this was opening. So they all thought this was fan-fucking-tastic. I mean, as one would. So many people bought the book immediately as it came out. Those people did include Belle, Rebecca, and Emily, like I did mention. And, you know, like I said, they were flipping through it and like going through what recipes they remember were like their favorites or ones they did all the time. Like one of them says she got super into like green juices. She's like, I convinced myself I liked it, but I knew it was good for me. So I'd have like one a day. And then, the one where it says if you don't drink like me was the beetroot soup recipe. And then another one talks about like the cashew cheese was like her favorite or whatever. Because again, obviously this whole focus is like clean, whole foods, blah, blah, blah. And
I'm gonna be honest though, I will fuck with a good cashew cheese. Like it is
really?
I actually really like cashew cheese. I know it sounds weird. And this is funny because this will go back to a conversation you and I had. Remember when I was like, I'm really sad because I like loved this like vegan adult grilled cheese. It's with cashew cheese. And I've always fucking loved it. But like, I think it's because I switched the bread. I think it like changed everything. But like I like it as a spread, you know, like maybe instead of like a mayo or something, and it get a little bit of protein, a little bit of flavor. And I don't know how to explain it, but it does taste like cheese. Like it does not taste like cashews.
Yeah. And that's what I think it was Rebecca. One of them, whatever one was talking about the cashew cheese. That's what she said too. So she was like, it's actually really good. So we get through that. And then we go back to Richard, our other reporter friend. We go back with him and he starts telling us about what it was like to try to dig for information on the real Belle and like her past and everything else. And he said literally all he could find what was printed or filmed in interviews, but that was pretty much it. He couldn't even find out who her actual friends were, like before this whole venture, couldn't find anything about her parents, couldn't even find out who her parents were, nothing. And then he mentions that when she was asked about these things in interviews, he noticed how she didn't like talking about it. And he decided that he wanted to speak with her directly, not only to hear about her story from herself, but he's like, maybe I can dig up some of these other things that we have no answers to, depending on how the conversation goes. Chanel then tells us that she ends up going to the book launch and she talks about how hard it was. And I cannot even imagine how hard it was for her to watch everyone be so supportive, be fawning over her, being like, I made these decisions about my treatment because of you, Belle, and everything like that. And apparently Belle was like, I ain't playing no fuck games. She says she went up to her and said, are you ready to come forward? And no surprise, Belle got aggressive and told her to fuck off, which like, obviously she's going to do that because because she's getting backed into like the worst corner possible, because not only is she being confronted about this, she's being confronted about this at the event in front of people. So duh, she's going to act like that. But you know, people's true colors come out no matter what. Then we find out, and this was like, holy fuck, y'all really were close. We find out that Chanel was mentioned in the acknowledgments of the cookbook. I was like, bitch, what?
Right? If I'm Belle in this moment, like I know that I have like put an acknowledgement of my friend who is now aggressive towards me. Like Belle did not do a good strategy with Chanel. Like she should have, like, if she was trying to keep this game going, she needed to handle this differently. But I'm so glad she didn't, because then she got exposed because Chanel was like, fuck this shit.
For sure. So in the book, it says about Chanel, quote, "You were there from the beginning, and I'll always remember that. Go chase your dreams now. It's time for me to have your back." End quote. Chanel says this is where their friendship ended, and she felt a responsibility to continue to expose her for what she was actually doing. And of course, the producers are like, do you think this was a message? Do you think it was this? And I'm like, no, it definitely wasn't, because they went and confronted her the day before the launch. You can't edit something like that when all the books are already printed. It just fit.
I bet she was having second thoughts though.
Oh, I bet if there was a way to get that removed, she would have, but you know, too late now, homie. So Richard talks about more on his doubts, and this began to take lead on his research as well. He says that everything from her appearance, how healthy she looked, was just so confusing, because according to research on this type of cancer, there's no way her body should have still been holding up so well. She shouldn't have even been alive. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to call to confirm and see if experts into this agree with me or what they have to say about it. And he didn't be like, oh, is this influencer? No, he literally just did it as unbiased as possible. He said, hey, I'm doing this story. I'm researching this case. Can you give me your feedback on if this would be possible or what it would actually look like, type of thing? And wouldn't you know, everybody confirmed what he was thinking, that this would not be possible. And also, to add to that, Kate comes back on the screen and she says, nothing's impossible, but this is so extremely unlikely. She said that she's never seen it happen over the course of her career. And the producers are reading the post Belle made about when she was like saying it spread and all this stuff. And you can just see Kate's just like shaking her head like, there is no way. And she goes on to emphasize how super, like to the full extreme, how uncommon this is. And she said, there's literally no way. She said, if a patient had gotten this news, they would have been moribund, which is being in the state of dying. So there is no looking healthy at all. You are on your last leg and you're about to go bye-bye forever.
Yeah. And that to me was like kind of a huge thing. Most people, like I have someone in my life who died of cancer, and I am still very much a novice at understanding like cancer treatments. So even if like you have someone who's going through it, you don't know every type of cancer. And like, you know, if you have like breast cancer, you don't always treat it the same way you would like a brain tumor. So if you don't know, like you don't know to fact check this.
Right.
I think the scariest thing about Belle was that Belle was this like beacon of hope for so many people, because as someone who lost someone to cancer, all you want is hope. It doesn't matter how implausible it is. And I think about this is around the time my mom was dying. I could have been sold into like, no, mom, let's just get you green juices. Let's do this. Let's do that. Because they would be hopeful. Like I'd be like, I want my mom to live. Let's do this. And that's what makes her like the worst of the worst, is that the hope that she put into the world, and then makes medical experts like Kate look like they're terrible, like they're lying, that there's only one way and it's big pharma and it's all this shit. But like, I'm so glad Kate was like, nope, you would be dying. Like there's no other way around it.
Right. Yeah. She literally says, she's like, there's no way that someone who had it that like severe of a case would be walking, talking, none of that. They'd literally just be on their deathbed. So then we go back to Richard, and like I said, the specialists, they all are confirming these doubts, right? And he's like, okay. So now he's like, I need to look deeper into this. He's like, what if this isn't that 1 in a million chance? What if she is scamming people? And he started to focus on the fact that he needed to get her on tape saying what she was claiming so he could have it on the record. And so he decided to contact her to set up an interview. No response at all. But the reason for that was because during this time when he was trying to reach out to her, Belle was away in Silicon Valley with Apple. And remember how I said, oh, I remember this because I was a consumer of blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Around this time as well, Apple Watch. And they did this deal that the whole food pantry was going to be one of the first apps on the watch, and it came preloaded on there. I remember that too. And that was funny because like when you were like, oh yeah, but this app costs things. I remember having it on my watch, but being like, no, I'm not going to pay for that. I don't want to pay for extra shit. I already bought this watch, like that kind of thing, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. And then on top of this, also Cosmo Magazine gave her the Fun Fearless Female Award. And this just catapulted her success and her fame and everything. And of course, we have Chanel watching all of this play out. And she said that she started looking into other ways to see what she could do to intervene, because the bigger Belle got, the more people she was going to influence with her lies and the more people she could potentially cause harm to. And she says she went to so many people. She went to journalists. She went to a lawyer. She even went to the police, and not a single person was taking her seriously, and even turned it around on her and saying that she was making very serious allegations of slander and defamation against this, quote, poor young sick woman who's a single mom. So basically she needed to not be a piece of shit and back off. That's the response she got. And understandably, Chanel says at this point she was so exhausted and she was so discouraged because she is like, no one will believe me. Well, in the turn of events, we're in February of 2015 because this just keeps on going. Belle finally agrees to meet with Richard at a cafe, and it is called Pillar of Salt. And of course, Richard says he went early to wait for her and just kind of like, so she could be the one, he'd have his bearings when she showed up, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I knew I wasn't going to challenge her because I obviously just want her to talk. I want to get her to talk as much as possible. So I'm going to be agreeable. I'm going to let her speak. She shows up late. He describes her as being very flustered. Some of his audio is inserted in this. So there's a clip where we get to hear her. She says, I'm good. I'm just a bit shaken up by the fact that I was just in an accident. So I'm a bit all over the place. And you can tell she sounds like very caught off guard, very flustered, exactly very like chaotic, right? And he figured something like this would happen. So he just like let her roll with it. And then so he ended up asking her about the tumor. And he says that as he remembered it, she was diagnosed by a doctor in Perth about 5 years ago. He's not being like, you said this, you said that. He's like, oh, I stumbled across this information and I think this is how I remember it. Like, am I remembering this right? Like, that's the approach he's taking. And I'm like, yes, dude, like smart, smart, smart. And she confirms all of this and says this kind of canned response that she tells everybody saying, yes, she did. The doctor gave her 4 months to live, and how this has been a, quote, I've been on a roller coaster of a journey. I know that it's time to figure out exactly where I stand, end quote. And he said this is when it started getting a little bit of alarm bells in his head. And he's like, what? And so Belle just loves to hear herself talk. She goes on to say, I've gone through some difficult relationships with doctors my whole life. There are people in my family that are angry that the team has led me astray, end quote. So he's like, well, what does that mean? And he asks her to clarify. He's like, so you've been led astray? And she goes into this like slippery type of storytelling and says, no, because, she's like, oh, fuck, she's like, shit. I said too much already, but I got to fix this. And says, for the main person that was leading this team, I still respect. And he follows up with, I think you read that you were also diagnosed with other secondary cancers elsewhere then? And she says, that is what this highly recommended doctor had diagnosed me with and then disappeared. She's referring to Dr. Phil. And she also mentions the night Chanel and her other friends confronted Belle. And she goes on to say, it's hard to respect someone who does something that has no moral or ethical backbone to it. And I'm like, in all caps in my notes, how funny you say this, Belle. Love this. Okay, pot meets kettle, but we'll go on. And Richard's just letting her speak. And she goes on to say, quote, and he's not entirely incorrect, but I know that he's not entirely correct either. I'm still waiting to know where I stand. I would say that it was more of a misdiagnosis than completely fictional, end quote. And this is like, Richard's mind is blown. He is like, holy fuck, I got it. Because basically she's saying, oh, maybe I don't have these cancers without fucking saying it out like that.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Oh no, what I was going to say is like, exactly. This was like, she's trying to be able to battle what Chanel is challenging her on. And she's like, if I give this reporter these things, we're now like, maybe that Chanel has come to my doorstep and has accused me of this. And it just made me start to think. And I'm going, I feel like Belle was like laying the trap so that I'll be able to like walk this back and be like, I went to another doctor. I was re-diagnosed. This is what it is. Thank God, blah, blah, blah. And then that would like get Chanel off her back. But she not that fast.
No, and she's not smart enough for that. Too late. So fast forward a couple weeks. So now we're into March of 2015. And Richard says he was about 2/3 done with his article because he was still trying to dig up on who the fuck Belle was. So, you know, he was trying to make sure he had everything he needed because this was going to be a huge ass article. We all know that. And wouldn't you know, a story from their rival newspaper called The Age dropped a story, and that story's headline was, quote, charity money promised by inspirational health app developer Belle Gibson not handed over, end quote. And the journalist from The Age is the only person who gave Chanel a chance to tell them everything she knew. And this is what led that journalist to look into the charities and follow up with them to see if Belle was actually giving this donations. And this is what started this story and helped unravel the rest. Basically, it spread all over the internet quickly because all of these charities were being like, you know what? Actually, no, we haven't received any money from Belle. Like, you haven't got it at all. And I loved this last moment of petty because this is the last time she bothers with Belle. Chanel texted her and said, you should check the news, ... But you've got this, right? And I'm like, damn, mic drop, savage ass bitch. I know.
I was like, ooh, like sometimes I love a good petty moment. I'm like, girl, you ate no crumbs.
100%. Well, of course, Belle ends up responding to the journalist about this and putting out her own thing and saying that she was just really busy and that it was a cash flow problem and saying it that, quote, we have, like all startups, struggled with managing all facets of new businesses. All remaining promised donations and support will be honored as soon as possible. There was a portion of Belle's community who did stand by her and then commented support, of course, and then commenting, they all ran to the publication and were in defense of Belle, as we expect, right? Well, this lit a fire under Richard's ass. And he's like, oh, fuck no. I need to get my story out before anybody else gets anything because now I got people digging into this. And now I'm going to have all these other people digging into this. I ain't about to put all this work I just did and have it be for nothing. So he's like, okay, so I have this on the record, her contradicting everything she's saying, her admitting about the misdiagnosis excuse, blah, blah, blah. So he went to Google to see what he could dig up about her past. And this was the moment he realized that her real past had been purposely buried. And he said that his jaw dropped when he found it. We get a quick glimpse, and it's like blurred for this part because it's like no spoilers. We get this like blurred out website, this blog spot, which is like where bloggers and stuff, you know, used to go type of thing. And no details yet, but he said that his story ended up running on the front page of The Australian the next day. He was like fucking with it. And the headline was, mega blogger cast out on cancer claim. And this was the beginning of the internet seeing Belle for who she really was. And we will absolutely get into all of this fallout next week. And Jess will tell us and recap the second episode / the final episode of this docuseries. Thoughts so far, Chanel's the MVP and a fucking badass, and I'm really glad somebody listened to her. And I'm also glad in the background, Richard was also digging into this because even if that first article didn't come out, his was still going to come out. Justice was coming either way. So yeah,
100%.
So that is where we're going to leave things for today. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you're familiar with this case or you watch this or you do tune in, as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up and we will see you next week. Bye guys.
Toodles.
Depression, fatigue, aches and pains, and the malaise of everyday life. Don't worry. At BTH, we've got stuff for all that stuff and more.
Side effects notwithstanding.
Our line of proprietary cutting-edge bio boosters are the way to health, wellness, and plain old feeling good. I'm CEO Robert Garbinger, but please, call me Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
If you need to quiet your mind and escape from the toxicity of everyday life, find out more at bthpharmaceuticals.com. Then go see The Toxic Avenger in theaters August 29th. That's bthpharmaceuticals.com to find out how to make the world a little less toxic.